edition of the Omnist Hour. They're coming fast and heavy, maybe going to until Christmas time. It seems to be the season of giving, and I'm giving it all on my channel. We're going to keep going along in the same vein. I've got 4 or 5 topics lined up, and we'll try to work them into the Christmas lineup. I'm going to title this one, "O Little Star of Bethlehem Steel," which kind of goes with the image that I created behind. Well, I didn't create it. I used an image creator, an AI, to create this, and only enhanced it to bring out my beauty by mirroring it. I think it turned out quite well. An all-father side chat for sun worshippers. Okay, what am I talking about here? Well, we're continuing with the theme that we had going last time. If you remember, the story was that as all of the old gods, the pure consciousness souls that were in the original multiverse that God found himself in and started creating other souls in, started having children in, started playing this game of creation in the 2 universes of the Big Bang. And it wasn't long at all before that game was getting pretty popular and pretty busy. And all of the players decided to play one game or another. Some enjoyed playing games of chemistry. Some enjoyed playing games of physics. The games of physics tended to be on the bigger scale, and the games of chemistry tended to still focus on the small scale. Okay, and as I mentioned, it became a problem that people's games were interfering with each other. You'd get, your nice little planet all put together the way you wanted, start populating it with things that you liked, and then all of a sudden somebody would throw a planet at it, or a massive cosmic ray burst, and destroy everything you'd been working on for the last few million years. And that began to piss people off. So the creators, who were more long-term minded, more responsible, wanted to create something lasting and beautiful, decided, well, we've got to start isolating. And God was one of those, in fact. He was the first one who had this idea of isolating. And he did that by creating a relatively isolated galaxy, the Milky Way, and found a very isolated star within that galaxy to begin assembling his own lab, his own experiment. Now, this could be called the Sol experiment, since all of the most exciting stuff going on in it has concentrated eventually on this little planet, like more commonly referred to it as the Gaia experiment. So this is how God chose the star for his experiments. And pretty much all of his secret creations were built and tested here before he let all of the other gods know about them, because he didn't want them to plagiarize his ideas before they were fully baked. He would send out prototypes, in fact, from this star system to test them. Sometimes the prototypes worked very well, other times they didn't work well at all. And sometimes they worked so poorly that that whole line of experimentation had to be destroyed. And then he would allow one of his children to get one of their snowballs through his defenses and do a great reset. And it was their fault. They've been trying to muck with them ever since day 0, before day 0. And this is how all the children take on all the dark karma, while God just tries to give his kids a better government, a better way of working together. Despite the fact that most of them are shitty diapered children. Okay, so what were some of the better new inventions that are getting us closer to the one that we're so fraught with questions about, humanity? Okay, well, I'm going to talk about some of the species that God invented and his family perfected, tested and perfected. One of them was a variety of creature born inside stars called a fire elemental. This is a consciousness that has the ability to gain consciousness, that is allowed to make free decisions, that exists within stellar spheres. It's a vehicle that exists at very high temperatures, stellar temperatures. In fact, they're not too happy living outside that, and they disperse very quickly. It is these creatures that are responsible for the weather on the sun. Now, they operate a lot less independently now than they used to. That's what all the testing was about. These creatures created one of the first versions of karma that had laws. Remember, I told you about karma was started as an idea. The 0th version of karma was the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The honor system. And we all know how well the honor system works in practice. It doesn't. The first soul that doesn't want to play by the game can muck the game up for everybody else. And that's why you have to start creating laws. That's why God started creating laws in the multiverse. And didn't just dictate them, because that would be forcing them down everybody's throat, and that would be bad karma. You see how this creation game works? Okay, so God set up this little lab and asked for volunteers for a new project. I want to make a kind of a soul vehicle that's like a star, but can go on missions without taking a whole star with them. And thus fire elementals were born. If you can imagine what an android, an AI, a robot made of pure energy was like, that was a fire elemental. And they're still around now. Not so many higher consciousness ones, because it's not the most interesting soul vehicle to choose. And it's a very dangerous soul vehicle, because they are easily destroyed by bigger fires. Okay? Every soul vehicle has its weaknesses. I'll mention another. This is a good chance to mention, this will be the theme holiday movie for today's discussion, The Wizard of Oz. You'll remember how the Scarecrow was deathly afraid of fire. That was his nemesis. The Tin Man was deathly afraid of water, because he'd freeze up. And, the Lion was afraid of everything, right? And this is kind of how soul vehicles work. They each have their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, their blind spots. Fire elementals were no different. Okay, so that was one that was invented. Well, once folks saw how effective fire elementals were, they thought, well, we can do that too. The next kind of elemental that came into existence was the air elemental. The elemental of gases, which kind of became the people of the gas giants, the planets like Jupiter and Saturn. And of course, then there were the water elementals, which were the product of planets that were conducive to water. Who knows? Maybe the earth elementals came first. Those were the ones that lived on the rocky planets that didn't have water. And kind of the place where they all came together was the first Garden of Eden. There was a Garden of Eden of elemental beings. And that's where they all tried to establish the perfect government of elementals. That didn't work out so well. They made a lot of progress, but eventually God realized that they had too much knowledge. They were just as spoiled and rotten as the first gods. They had too much power, they had too much spiritual power, they had too much memory of what was going on, they had too much knowledge of the experiment they were a part of. And their planet got destroyed. That's where the asteroid belt is now. That was the first major reset of the Sol experiment. Now, any good creator knows that if you're on a budget, you don't throw out any of stuff you already created. You use it, reuse it. You take it apart, use the wires, extract the gold or the other precious metals or whatever that were in it, and you reuse it. And that's the story of this solar system and its planets. A lot of experiments, a lot of reuse. And this is the truth that is sort of remaining in some of our spiritual traditions. Most particularly, the Sumerian tablets talk about this era of planet formation. Anybody who has read those texts literally and with a knowledge of how they relate to the truth of the planets will tell you that there's absolutely no way that those so-called gods could not be associated with planets in our own solar system. In fact, other gods then show a relation to constellations which are visible from our solar system. And there are so many coincidences to how things were set up that it doesn't take a genius to know that these were all messages placed a long, long time ago. Easter eggs, although we're not heading into Easter, that's another very good holiday to talk about. Easter eggs planted for bright souls to discover. Little inspirations, little trails of breadcrumbs. And that's, the other side of the way that God really operates. God is not all powerful. God is not all knowing. God has a plan. But he's not forcing anybody to play his game. He gives you hints, messages, through the arrangement of planets, through the arrangements of stars and galaxies, and coincidentally, it's only the visibility on this planet that really makes all of this sense. That's why it's very special to be incarnated on Gaia. Okay, so let's see. We talked about the age of the Earth elementals, how they were destroyed. Now, let's talk about what happened in the interim. Once these elementals existed, they had their own technology. It was an elemental technology. They knew how to manipulate matter and energy very well. Well enough to outdo even the creators of the pyramids. The Cyclopean walls that are all over the world that nobody can explain. That are so well crafted, you can't slip a piece of paper between the stones. And who are carved in these weird shapes that nobody can explain except people who understand how you make something that's going to last through millions of years of earthquakes and volcanoes and meteor or asteroid strikes that aren't close enough to completely destroy anything. And that's another way that little calling cards are left, not only by God, but by previous chosen species. And I use the word species very loosely. Not all chosen species were organic. In fact, organic species were not invented till after this first elemental Eden. They needed a secondary Eden to come into being. Now we'll talk more about that later because I don't want to get too deep in talking about any particular planets, because that's a topic for a future discussion. At any rate, I think I gave you enough of a taste. Let's see, all father side chat for some. Oh, let's talk about where this Bethlehem steel idea came from. If you know much about building things, you will know that the first really good alloy for building things out of metal is steel. Now, what do you need to make steel? Well, it takes a lot of iron. Steel is an iron alloy that is much stronger than iron itself. It beats out tin, it beats out copper, it beats out bronze. And very interesting that this little star here had just the right combination of minerals to allow the formation of planets that had all the elements that we would need. Just enough. Not too much. And give you some thoughts to contemplate along those lines. If you know anything about steel, the steelworks in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania were kind of the capital of steelworking in the glory days of the U.S. And now there's bazillion steel plants in China, all going out of business, trying to do the same thing, trying to repeat the same miracle of Bethlehem steel. Coincidence? I don't think so. There's no such thing as coincidences once you start looking at the world through God-colored glasses. Lithium seems to be the really exciting mineral right now. And I'll remind you that we've already talked about Lilith, the female demiurge who was the chosen, selected candidate for the anti-universe, Borg's universe, the adversary's universe. Lithium is a very dangerous material, as anybody who knows anything about it would tell you. It's extremely toxic, yet for a while they were giving people lithium for mental health treatment. Even people like Ye, that we're talking about now, and people casting aspersions at our celebrity there for having had mental health treatment using lithium against his wishes, without his consent. Very evil karma right there. At any rate, it all kind of ties together. Every day there's so many synchronicities that I could do 5 shows a day and never stop talking about interesting synchronicities I'd seen that day. Sun worshippers. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Before the planets formed, there was a star here. There have been many stars, actually, that went into the making of our familiar sun. Do you know anything about stellar formation, stellar dynamics? You will know that it would be impossible for this solar system to have occurred as a first-generation star. And we don't know the history of it before then. If there was another star, stars, or whatever before our star formed, and had not only lots of hydrogen, but lots of other minerals ready to be thrown out when the hydrogen stopped burning, or as the hydrogen stopped burning. And if it hadn't been for just the right combination of minerals, elements, to be in this stellar system, we would not have the interesting array of planets we have. And, scientists are just now starting to be able to detect and measure the characteristics of other exoplanets, and looking for ones that might have the same perfect, what's the word I'm looking for? The perfect porridge. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Baby bear's porridge. Looking for the porridge planet that could be just as wonderful as this one, because many people are getting worried that we're not going to be able to use this one for much longer. Well, actually, we know we're not going to be able to use it for, to find much, but eventually this planet will cease to exist. It will be taken out by one of a number of events which we know are on the way. Our sun is burning fuel. When it burns through all the fuel that it's got, all the hydrogen it's got, it's going to have to find out if it's massive enough to burn anything else. And if, in contracting to go try to burn something else, it triggers off a nova, an explosion. That would take out our planet but quick. There are a number of star systems near us that are close enough that if they went supernova, they'd pretty much take us out too. There are events going on that could generate enough cosmic ray activity, could take the whole planet out. So it's only a matter of time. Scientists know that. They're afraid to tell you that because they don't want to worry the little children. Well, I can see that point. I mean, I'm going to be talking about this separately, about what do we tell children and why don't we tell them everything? Why do we make up pleasant stories, and when should we make up pleasant stories? But that's a story for another sermon. So I'm just going to leave you with those tidbits and a recommendation to watch The Wizard of Oz again with new eyes. Okay, don't use the eyeballs that Hollywood gave you. Use them the eyeballs of experience. Look at the wizard as a snake oil salesman who may be well-intentioned, but actually didn't give them anything. Not a damn thing. Well, he gave the balloon to Dorothy so she could fly back to Kansas. No, he didn't. He took off on the balloon himself, didn't he? Let's see. Somebody gave her the glass slippers. I guess Glinda was the only good guy in the thing. But those slippers weren't hers. They were taken from another witch, which Dorothy killed. So we're supposed to go kill anyone that gets in our way and steal their slippers, I guess is the message of that show. I don't know. Talk about it with your kids. Watch it with a new set of eyes and talk about it over the Christmas feast. I dare you. Anyway, that was the Omnist Hour for today. Wasn't quite an hour, only about half an hour. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe, interact in any way you like. And if you want to donate, why, that would be great. If you want to participate, I could certainly use some help with this channel. I do it all myself, and I'm lazy. At any rate, the Omnist Hour with Rob Trump. Look for me on Quora. Look for me on Facebook. Places where I'm fairly active. I even started doing Twitter again in the last week. I'm not sure I like it very much. I certainly don't like the short message form. It's like one step better than a meme. And I've also been speaking out against this short form that's the TikTok form that's been invading YouTube. I don't like it. I think it is a Borg psyop, basically designed to keep us from communicating in a way where we can actually understand each other. And if you tie back to the whole point of creation was about developing better ways to communicate and to work together as souls, to share ideas and share them in a meaningful way, not just, I think love is this. No, I think love is that. Love is this, love is that. And it turns into hate, right? We're still working on that, but that's the overall goal. That's the overall problem that God set off to solve, along with his family. And every Christmas, when you have family visiting, every Thanksgiving, when you have family visiting, you can participate in solving that problem. Not by talking about the weather, not by talking about football, not by talking about the latest programming from the boob tube. Talking about things that matter. Yeah, you can talk about movies and stuff, but talk about them not agreeing on everything. Oh yes, this is the message of it, yes. Of course, it's so obvious. Anything that is obvious is programming. What's not obvious is what's behind the programming. And if you're very astute, you will notice even in the most programmed Hollywood productions, you will find things that, whoa, why did they do that? Why did this character exist? The scriptwriter knows something I don't? Why did they use this particular set of props on a set? Those kind of questions will lead you to a lot deeper meaning in whatever you're watching, whatever you're listening to. And this is part of the reason why they're making such an effort to dumb down everything. Turn it into a meme. Turn it into a cookie cutter kind of movie where you just plop in the latest politically correct characters and you just turn the sausage machine and make the same old movie again and again and again. And it's pretty boring if your brain has advanced beyond a first grade level. So take your kids to a new level watching your Christmas classics this year. I guarantee you'll have fun. You might be having a few more arguments than you normally do, but if you do it in the spirit of omnism, you'll be doing it right. because one of the key manifestos of omnism is let's agree to disagree. You don't need to let things come to blows. It's okay to have two different points of view, to defend different points of view, to keep talking about them till one point of view becomes so cognitively dissonant that they gotta just laugh and says, I don't know how I could have believed that for so long. It's absurd, isn't it? And this is kind of how omnism works. Okay, so for the Omnis Hour, I bid you once again, happy karma.